Okay. All right. What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Preston Rowe coming to you live with the Trash Talk Tailgate. And unfortunately, Riley is not here today. Puddin's not here. He's sick. But that's okay. I'm going to be holding it down today. And what a week of college football. I say this all the time. This just another example of why college football is the best. You're not expecting a whole lot of great games, and then college football gives you absolute chaos. The college football gods, they always deliver. Might not be how you want it, but they always deliver. And it's absolutely amazing. I love college football. So let's get right into it. So let's first of all start with Oklahoma having a huge upset win at home against Alabama. 24-3, the Sooners upset the Crimson Tide. And this was, to me, this was a story about Oklahoma's defense. Riley talks about him a lot. Riley loves him. Brent Venables' defense came to play today. They absolutely came to play. It was awesome. They shut down Jalen Milroe, and they shut down this Alabama Crimson Tide offense pretty handily. And Oklahoma, I don't know which was a bigger shocker, to be honest. Oklahoma and their anemic offense all season long scoring 24 points, or Alabama and their pretty explosive, high-octane offense at times, only scoring 3 points. That's a pretty damn, those are shockers on both ends. But I think the story of this game, like I said earlier, was Oklahoma's defense. They shut down Alabama. And Alabama all year, I've been kind of saying it, they've been a flawed team. Alabama's been a flawed team. And they're kind of carried and masked by their high-end talent with Jalen Milroe, Ryan Williams. They've got really good linebackers, but they're talented, but I don't know if it's necessarily a great roster like we're used to seeing Alabama have. It's just very top-heavy and very high-end. So what I mean by that is, Alabama, they kind of have an easy button, and they've kind of been able to utilize it all year, which is Jalen Milroe's legs. Jalen Milroe is not the best passer in the world. He proves that time and time again, but he's one of the best running quarterbacks in all of college football. His legs are a huge dynamic weapon for the Crimson Tide. Kalen DeBoer knows that. They absolutely shredded LSU with his legs. And then obviously they have Ryan Williams. Whenever they do need to throw the ball, they have maybe the best receiver in the country who's only 17 years old. And they kind of have those two easy buttons on offense. Jalen Milroe's legs and Ryan Williams when they do need to throw the ball. But Brent Venables and that Sooners defense, they shut them down. They really shut them down. Jalen Milroe, he had 15 carries for 7 yards. They took away his legs. They forced him to throw the ball. And when you force Jalen Milroe to throw the ball, he's liable to kind of hand you the game. He had 3 interceptions. He was 11 of 26, 164 yards. That's a 6.3 average per completion, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions with a 15.4 QBR. They shut him down. And then on the flip side, Alabama, defensively, they've been flawed all year. They have really good linebackers in Deontay Lawson and Jahad Campbell. They're freak of nature type linebackers. They're going to be first-round draft picks more than likely. But Deontay Lawson goes out, and Jackson Arnold just gashes them. Jackson Arnold, Oklahoma's quarterback, only had 68 yards passing. He was 9 of 11 but he had no touchdowns, no interceptions. He gashed them on the ground, though. 25 carries for 131 yards, and he was able to keep drives alive, keep the chains moving. Oklahoma, they were 7 of 15 on third down. Alabama was 7 of 14. The difference in this game was the interceptions. I mean, you cannot turn the ball over like that. And I don't care how bad Oklahoma's been this year. If you turn the ball over 3 times, you're not going to win that football game. It's going to be really, really hard to do that. You have to give Oklahoma and Brent Venables credit for that. They absolutely shut down Jalen Milroe, and they got a huge, huge win. This is a much needed win for Oklahoma. A much needed win. I'm wearing my Oklahoma shirt. I'm not an Oklahoma fan, but I just figured I'd wear it today because that's a huge win. When your season hasn't been going like you maybe thought it would, to kind of end the season on a high note, getting a huge home win against Alabama. I know they're not Alabama of old, but it's still Alabama. That's a huge, huge momentum shift going into the offseason. That's huge. And that's a huge win for Brent Venables. It's a huge win for this Oklahoma Sooner football program. That's huge. All right. So now let's go ahead and move on here. And now this was the game that everyone was really, really excited for. Number 5, Indiana, going into the shoe to take on number 2, Ohio State. And there was a lot of people had different opinions on Indiana. My opinion was, I know they haven't really played anybody of note, but it's really hard to go 10-0 in the Big Ten. It's really, really hard to win a football game, let alone 10 football games. So you have to give them credit for what Indiana has accomplished up to this point. And to me, this game was all about Ohio State. Ohio State, the first drive, Indiana, they go up 7-0. But on that drive, Ohio State kind of plays a very vanilla defense. They don't pressure Curtis Rourke at all, and they don't get after him. They play very vanilla base defense, just playing basic man coverage. They don't pressure him. And Jim Knowles, Ohio State's defensive coordinator, he's known to get pressure. He's very exotic with his pressure sometimes. So Indiana, they go up 7-0. And then after that, it was all Ohio State. Indiana, after that, they gave up a 38-8 run. Ohio State went on a 38-8 run. And it just wasn't even close. And a huge reason for that was the fact that after that first drive, Ohio State started to pressure. They brought pressure from everywhere. And we talked about it last week. Before this, Indiana played Michigan. Michigan's not a great team, but they have a great defensive front, especially up front on the D-line particular. And Indiana struggled. They won that game 20-15, but in the second half, they couldn't really move the ball. And I kind of said that's a concern because if Indiana can't hold up front, then it's going to be really, really hard for them to go into the shoe and get a huge win. And that's kind of what happened. After that first drive, Indiana couldn't do anything. Curtis Rourke finished 8 of 18 for 68 yards. They averaged 2.1 yards on the ground. They had 40 carries for 85 yards. They couldn't get any push up front. They were just getting sacks. Ohio State had 5 sacks and 8 tackles for loss. They were just dominated up front. And, it just wasn't close. Indiana, they couldn't move the ball at all. They could not move the ball. I thought Ohio State's defense dominated this game, especially up front. And that's a huge reason why they were able to win this game. Yep. I mean, I know Indiana, they had special teams miscues, the punt going over the punter's head, all of that, it's really hard when you're that heavily overmatched going into the shoe like that. You can't make those kind of mistakes. You can't turn the ball over like they did and expect to, you know, and expect to come out with a win. They lost the ball. They fumbled the ball on a strip sack. They had the miscue with the punt. Oh, it just Indiana. I don't think this game was ever really close after that first drive because Ohio State, they just kind of asserted their dominance and they just dominated Indiana. Now, if you are Ohio State, this is a huge win. You're now 2-1 this season under Ryan Day against top 5 teams. You beat Penn State, you beat Indiana. Obviously, you lost to Oregon. But if you're Ohio State, I still have concerns about you moving forward. Your offensive line is, very much a work in progress. All the injuries that you've had. A win like this, you can get away with an offensive line like that against Indiana or even against a Penn State. But against the better teams in the country, like in Oregon, again, if you guys meet in the Big Ten championship game or in the college football playoff, Georgia, Alabama, like all Texas A&M, Texas, all of these big time teams with big time defensive lines, you're going to struggle. And that's still my concern about Ohio State is still their offensive line. They need to get better up front. And here's the thing, I don't know how much better you really can get up front with all the injuries you've had, I think that's going to be the biggest hurdle that Ohio State's going to have to get over if they want to win a national championship this year, which is, that's their goal. They went all in this year to win a national championship. You've got to get better up front. And I just don't know how much better you can realistically get up front with all the injuries on the offensive line. If you're Indiana, I know you lost to the only good team you played. You should beat Purdue next week. I know that's a rivalry game, throw everything out, but you should beat Purdue next week. You'll go in to the end of the season 11-1. If you lose to Purdue, you're not getting in. So you have to beat Purdue. But if you're Indiana, I still think you should be in because going 11-1 in the Big Ten is incredibly, incredibly difficult. That's really, really hard. And you're Indiana. I mean, nobody saw this coming from Indiana. I don't care how big of a Curt Cignetti fan you are, and I'm a huge Curt Cignetti fan. Nobody saw Indiana going 11-1 in his first year. Nobody saw them going 10-0 into the horseshoe in Columbus. Like, that's crazy. If you're Indiana, if you went out and you take care of your business like you're supposed to, you should be in the college football playoff. I firmly believe that. All right. Let's see. Where are we going to go to next? This is just a game. This was just a day of upsets. And like I said, it's why college football is so amazing. So you've got Ole Miss, number 9 ranked Ole Miss going into the Swamp. And this is really fucking funny because earlier this week, Lane Kiffin said it might be better to not play in the SEC championship game because if you get to Atlanta and lose, that might hurt your college football playoff chances. Whereas if you don't go to Atlanta and you don't have to play that extra game, you'll just get into the playoff if you take care of your business. And that looks hilarious now because Ole Miss, in fact, did not take care of their business. They go into the Swamp and they lose 24-7. And Jackson Dart literally said, I'm going to just give Florida this game. Jackson Dart, he played well to start the game, but in the second half, he was awful. No touchdowns, and he had two horrendous interceptions. One of them was in a triple coverage where he just completely overthrew, you know, Juice Watkins in the end zone. It was horrible. It was an awful interception, throwing it into triple coverage like that. But then Ole Miss, they're able to get a stop. So they get the ball back to Jackson Dart. And then he was just hell-bent on giving Florida the ball back. He should have thrown another interception, but the DB dropped it. It was ruled not a catch. The Florida DB dropped it. And then on the very last play that Ole Miss had possession of the ball, he said, no, without a doubt, we are losing this game. And he threw it. It looked like a miscommunication, or he just completely overthrew the receiver. But the receiver was not anywhere in the vicinity. He threw it right to the Florida DB, and that's ball game. I mean, Ole Miss, they 100% blew this game. They blew this game. And it's even funnier when you think about what Lane Kiffin said, when you take into the fact that Ole Miss has never played in the SEC championship game. And you're talking about, it might be better for us not to play that game. Nope. I don't know. I just think that's kind of karmic poetic justice. I'm not going to lie. I mean, he had 2 red zone turnovers. Ole Miss, they had it's just not a good game for Ole Miss. They blew this. And they blew their playoff chances because all 3 of their losses have been to unranked teams. But they beat Georgia. It's hilarious because we said all year that Ole Miss's problem was they beat the teams they're supposed to, but they can never get over the hump and beat teams that they're not supposed to, that have equal or greater talent than they do. And they beat Georgia this year. They beat Georgia at home. That's a huge win for them. But then they go out and they drop games that they're not supposed to. All 3 of their losses have been to unranked teams. All 3 of their losses have been to unranked teams. And on the flip side, if you're Florida, Billy Napier, congratulations on saving your job. You have a legit chance to go 7-5 because Florida State is an absolute dumpster fire. And you play them next week in rivalry week, you have a legit chance to go 7-5 with, by far, and I've said it many times, that was the hardest schedule I think I've ever seen in college football. And the fact that you were on the hot seat, everybody wanted you fired, everybody wanted you gone. The fact that you were on the hot seat and you're able to survive this season with a winning record, that's congratulations to Billy Napier. That's huge. That is huge. Another fun fact I saw about this game. So for those of you that don't know, Ole Miss, they beat the Tim Tebow Florida team. And that gave us the Tim Tebow crying, weeping, I promise. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's really, really cool. But since that game, Florida has played Ole Miss 3 times, and Florida is 3-0 against Ole Miss. And 2 of those Ole Miss teams were top 10 teams. I find that really funny. I mean, I think really the story of this game was just Ole Miss turnovers. They had 3 turnovers. 2 of them were in the red zone. And just Ole Miss, they blew this game. They really blew this game. And they probably blew their college football playoff hopes too. That's all I really have to say about that. That's just this was a great game. Huge win for the Florida Gators and Billy Napier. But this Ole Miss, they blew this game. They went all in. They were one of the few teams that went all in this year. They went out, they get Walter Nolan. They bring back guys. They bring back Jackson Dart, Trey Harris. Trey Harris didn't play in this game, but still, you should beat Florida. And a lot of people thought that this season would be a failure if they didn't make the college football playoff, and it's looking like this season's a failure. They need a lot of help to get into the playoff now. They need a lot of stuff to kind of fall their way. Because I don't know if a 9-3 SEC team is going to make the playoff when all three of their losses are to unranked teams. Like I don't see it happening. Yeah. Now let's go to another crazy ass game. Oh my God. Where is it? Here we go. Auburn, you proved me wrong. I was asked about this game specifically earlier this week. Our executive producer, Jasper, asked me about this game. He asked me what my thoughts were. And I'm not going to lie. I said, look, Auburn, they have a chance to beat, they play two ranked teams their last 2 games of the season, Texas A&M, and then they play Alabama on the road next week in the Iron Bowl. And Jasper asked me, do you see this game being close? And I said no. I thought A&M would roll them, because my logic was if Auburn's going to go all out to beat a ranked team at the end of the year, they're not going to care about Texas A&M. They're going to care about Alabama. They want to ruin Alabama's season, because that's just what Auburn does. They always seem to ruin Alabama seasons when you least expect it. But I guess what I didn't take into account was the Jordan Hare voodoo. Because Jordan Hare, just crazy shit happens, especially late in November. Crazy shit always seems to happen at Jordan Hare. You have the kick six, the prayer at Jordan Hare, just a bunch of crazy stuff that happens at Jordan Hare. And this game went into 4 overtimes. Auburn, they went up 21-0, and then they blew that lead. And then Texas A&M, they are able to come back, and they're able to get it into overtime. And this game goes into 4 overtimes. That's crazy. I mean, Marcel Reed, Texas A&M quarterback, he did not play well to start the game, but he finished really well. 22 of 35, 297 yards, and 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Peyton Thorne actually had a pretty decent game. 19 of 31, 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Cam Coleman, their stud freshman receiver at Auburn, 7 catches, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns. Keandre Lambert-Smith, the transfer from Penn State, 2 catches, 104 yards. I mean, Auburn, they were actually able to throw the ball. Like, that's, to me, that was the biggest thing in this game, is the fact that Auburn was able to throw the ball pretty consistently. And, they were 5 of 14 on third down. Texas A&M was 10 of 19. Just this game was crazy. This game is just why you love college football so much. Texas A&M, a lot like Ole Miss, they probably blew their college football playoff hopes. They have to beat Texas next week just to have a prayer, just to have a hope to get in. And again, I talked about Auburn looking ahead. Maybe Texas A&M looked ahead, because if there's a team that hates Texas, it's Texas A&M. The fact that game is going to be played for the first time next week in 13 years, that's going to be a huge game. Texas A&M very well might have been looking ahead to that Texas Longhorn game. But, I mean, if they want a shot to make the playoff now, they have to beat Texas just to have a prayer. I mean, and even then, I'm not sure if that's going to do it. I mean, just these teams just blowing their shot. Alabama blew it. Ole Miss blew it. Texas A&M blew it. That's just college football chaos gods. They have no mercy. They come for everyone. That's why I love college football so much. It's the greatest sport in the world. Another fun fact about those 3 games: Auburn, Oklahoma, and Auburn, Oklahoma, and Florida going into this weekend were all a combined 5-14 in SEC conference play. And all 3 of them collectively just pulled off 3 of the biggest upsets of the season. College football is amazing. College football is awesome. I love college football. It's the best. Coming into 4 overtimes. That's crazy. All right. Let's see what else we got. All right. We got Penn State, Minnesota. This game was a really good game. Penn State almost blew this game. Drew Aller played well, 21 of 28, 244 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. Tyler Warren, once again, just showing you that he's one of the best weapons in all of college football. Their tight end, number 44, not even a tight end, just a do-it-everything football player. He just does everything for them. He'll run the ball, he'll catch the ball, he'll block, he'll do everything for Penn State. 8 catches, 142 yards. But I mean, Minnesota, they stayed in this game. There was a block punt. There was a block PAT, there was a block PAT for them to go up 19-16 in the third quarter. This game had everything. This game was awesome. Darius Taylor, Minnesota's stud running back. He was kind of held in check, 17 carries for 58 yards. I think the story of this game was just Penn State finding a way to win. They always seem to start out slow, and then they just find ways to win. Even when the game doesn't go their way early, they just find ways to win. In a weekend where a bunch of college football contenders blew their shot, Penn State almost blew their shot, but they didn't. If they lost to Minnesota, they probably would have been left out. But they didn't. They found a way to win, and that's really the key. I mean, Penn State, they were 1 of 11 on third down. It's really hard to win a football game when you're 1 of 11 on third down. And in Minnesota, they were 5 of 12. They weren't great on third down. But the issue was just they turned the ball over, and offensively, they couldn't really get anything going. They had 282 yards of total offense to Penn State's 361. And Penn State, they just find ways to win, man. That's all you have to do. All Penn State has to do, they have to win out, and they're in. That's all Penn State has to do. They have to win out. They have Maryland next week at home. That'll be senior day for them. All they have to do is just win out, and they're in, I believe. You're not leaving out a 1-loss Penn State. Let's see. Where else do we want to go? Ooh. Let's go Kansas, Colorado. Kansas, they started out, not great. I thought they'd be Big 12 contenders. They started the season 1-6. And at one point they were 2-7. But no. Okay. Yeah. So they started the season 1-5. And at one point they were 2-6, but now they've ripped off 3 straight Big 12 wins all against the perceived Big 12, leader in the clubhouse. They beat number 17 Iowa State. They went on the road and beat number 6 BYU. And then they had a huge home win against number 16 Colorado 37-21. Kansas, they're playing like the team we all thought they could be. Jalen Daniels hasn't been turning the ball over. They've been able to run the ball. They've looked really, really good these last few weeks, and they've made it a mission to beat all the Big 12 contenders and just throw absolute chaos into this conference. This conference, you could argue, is the best conference just in terms of competitiveness and just absolute chaos. This conference is awesome. The Big 12, because they're all the same team. Besides Colorado, who have 2 top-end first-round draft picks on their roster, and Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, all these teams, Baylor, UCF, Kansas State, BYU, Colorado, Iowa State, Arizona State, TCU, West Virginia, all of those teams, Kansas, they're all the same team. They're all the same roster. They're just good. There's not one great team because Texas and Oklahoma left this conference. There's not one great team. So they're all just good to mid teams. And that's what makes this conference so much fun. It's awesome. It's awesome to watch. It's awesome to be a part of every single week. And the Kansas Jayhawks, they have made it a mission to just ruin all the Big 12 contender seasons. I mean, Devin Neal, 37 carries for 207 yards. They had 333 total yards rushing on the ground because Jalen Daniels added 72. Sevian Morrison, another running back, 47 yards. Like, they just kind of dominated Colorado up front. And that was really the story of the game. They were 9-14 on third down. And they had 522 yards to Colorado's 309. And they kept Shedeur to 266 yards passing. That's crazy. There were no turnovers in this game. So the difference was Kansas's ability to just dominate up front. And this is the Kansas team we all thought we were going to get. They're not going to win the conference, but they are playing like a really, really, really damn good football team right now. And they play Baylor next week. So, if this conference has told us anything, it's that Baylor's probably going to upset this Kansas team next week. That's just what this conference is at this point. This conference is a lot of fun, but they're all the same team. There's a lot of parity in the Big 12. Where else do we want to go? BYU, Arizona State. So BYU, they were undefeated until 2 weeks ago. And now they've dropped 2 straight. Now they're 9-2. I think the story about BYU is the fact that this game was crazy because Arizona State, they had a premature field storming. I've never seen that before. They had to get everyone off the field because there was an untimed down. And then Arizona State, they're able to win the game anyway, and they beat BYU 28-23. But again, like I talked about with the Big 12, they're all the same team. Arizona State, they're now 9-2. BYU, they're 9-2. Arizona State's playing really good football right now. And they have a shot to potentially, get to the Big 12 championship game. But the story to me is BYU. They were winning a lot of close games early, and now the coin flips are not going their way. That is to me what the story of BYU is. The fact that in a league where there's so much parity and when there's not one great dominant team, if you play close games, you're not going to be able to win those coin flips forever. And they were winning a lot of close games. And they were undefeated because of it. That's why a lot of people didn't respect them. But now they've kind of regressed back to the mean a little bit. And they've dropped 2 close games, 2 1-score games. So yeah. BYU 9-2 now. They've got Houston for Senior Day next week, but Arizona State, they've got rivalry week. They go on the road at Arizona next week. That's going to be a huge game. Cam Scatabo, really good running back for them. 28 carries, 147 yards, 3 touchdowns. Sam Levitt played a decent game, 16-25, 247, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. It's just BYU, they turn the ball over. And when you can't dominate teams with talent and when you have the same talent composite as all your competition, you can't afford to turn the ball over. I mean, you can't afford to turn the ball over. They had 2 turnovers. Arizona State had 1. They're all, if you look at the box score, they're all evenly matched. They're all equal teams. Like, that's what makes the Big 12 so much fun, is the fact that they're all the same team. Yep. This is gonna be a shorter live stream. But shout out to Nebraska, who are bowl eligible for the first time since 2016. Shout out to Nebraska and Matt Rule. A lot of people thought they might blow it. It looked like they were going to get bowl eligible earlier in the year, and then they kind of dropped some games that they probably should have won. But they are now bowl eligible. So shout out to Nebraska. That's huge for them. That's a huge step in the right direction for Matt Rule and the Cornhuskers. Yeah. I think that's kind of everything that I want to talk about in terms of a college perspective. So now it's time to do my NFL predictions real quick. Time to do my NFL predictions. All right, Vikings at the Bears. I'm taking the Vikings. Y'all know how I feel about the Bears. They're not well coached. I don't believe in Caleb Williams. I don't think his game translates to the NFL. And the Vikings, they're just a better roster. They've got the better coach. The Vikings go into Soldier Field, and they're going to get this win. The Lions at the Colts at Lucas Oil Stadium. Y'all know how I feel about the Lions. I think the Lions are the best team in the NFL. I don't, if you want to tell me the Chiefs, that's fine, but I still think the Lions are better. And I don't trust Anthony Richardson. I love the Lions. I love what they've done. They're 5-0 on the road. I think that goes to 6-0 on the road today. Yep, give me the Lions over the Colts. Patriots and the Dolphins. Tua is playing well. I like the Dolphins at home. Plus, this is kryptonite for the Patriots. Even when the Patriots were dominant, they always struggled in Miami. So I like the Dolphins at home. The Buccaneers and the Giants. The Giants just released Daniel Jones. Who could have seen that coming? I don't know. Just the trash talk tailgate. Just the trash talk tailgate. The Bucs, they get Mike Evans back. He's supposed to play. I like the Bucs big. In this game. The Giants are a dumpster fire. They don't know what they're doing. Cowboys and the Commanders. Typically, I would say it'd be the funniest thing ever if the Cowboys did somehow find a way to win this game, because their season's in the toilet. But I trust the Commanders a lot more. It's at home. This is a huge game for the Commanders. They have a chance to go to 8-4 and solidify their playoff position. I like the Commanders at home. the Chiefs and the Panthers. In Charlotte. Oh, I like the Chiefs. I think this game might be closer than people think because I think the Chiefs might just be kind of sleepwalking. But that loss to the Bills last week probably woke them up. I think if they had beaten the Bills, there's a chance they might drop this game. But I think that loss kind of woke them up. So I like the Chiefs in this game. Titans and the Texans. The Texans, one of the storylines of the NFL that I don't think we're talking about as much as we should is the fact that the Texans, their offensive line is not playing very well, especially the interior of their O-line. And the Titans have Jeffrey Simmons and Trevondre Sweat, two of the better defensive tackles in the league. The Titans have a really good defense. It's just their offense is so bad. I like the Texans to win this game just because they've got more talent. But I expect this game to be a lot closer than people realize because of that front and the Texans' struggles on the O-line. The Broncos and the Raiders. I like the Broncos in this game. The Raiders are a complete dumpster fire. Sean Payton, he's proven me wrong about Bo Nix. But, we'll see. I like the Broncos in this game. 49ers and the Packers. Let's see. Is Brock Purdy supposed to play? Nope, Brock Purdy is not going to play in this game. I like the Packers. I like the Packers at home. The 49ers, everyone who's shitting on Brock Purdy, I think they're going to see just how good they are without him. And I don't think they're going to be that good. I think Brock Purdy is kind of the engine that makes his team go, especially with Christian McCaffrey being out this year. I like the Packers. I like the Packers at home. Cardinals and the Seahawks going into Lumen Field with the 12th man. I like the Cardinals. The Cardinals, they're playing really good football right now. And the Seahawks, they're kind of playing inconsistent, but I like the Cardinals to go on the road and get a huge win. And then the Eagles and the Rams in Inglewood, in SoFi. I like the Eagles. The Eagles are playing like a really good NFC contender right now. They're one of the hottest teams in the NFL. I like the Eagles to go on the road and get a huge win. All right. Well, that about wraps up our live stream here at the Trash Talk Tailgate. For those of you that watched today, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate it. Puddin will be back tonight for our 11:30 NFL recap stream. We really appreciate all you guys who support us. If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe. We're at 205 subscribers. We're trying to pump those numbers up. We really believe in everything that we're doing here at the TTT, and we do it for y'all. So please, if you have not already, like, comment, subscribe, all of the things. We really appreciate y'all. But I got to get out of here. We'll be back tonight at 11:30. But until then, see ya.